Hello, and welcome to the Board of Health meeting of September 20th, 2021. This meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chairman. Pursuant to Governor Baker's June 16, 2021 signing of an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, including the extension of his March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until April 1, 2022, this meeting of the Chatham Board of Health is being conducted in person and via remote for public participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 508-945-4410, and the ID number is 589-485-398#. Or everyone can join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Channel 18, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. Now I turn the meeting over to Chairman John Beckley.
Thank you, Judy. Well, welcome everyone to our meeting today, September 20th, 2021. On the agenda tonight, we have 4 items. I'd like to start off with the first one, which is a request for extension of a variance previously granted to David Hall at 5 Windy Hill Way. All the board members received a memo from Judy summarizing the situation here, and we received a copy of the original waiver from back in October 2020. Judy, do you just want to recap where we are with this?
Sure. So this was a variance that you gave out a year ago. Our variances, we do say that they're only good for a year. We did that a few years ago because we had one particular case that I can remember that dragged on for so long, and then the neighbors started feuding, and they were like, well, how long are variances good for? And so we decided to put a time limit on them. Okay. As far as I know, nothing has changed at this property. I think Mr. Hall is here, and he can address what their plans are moving forward.
Mr. Hall.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, my wife and I bought this property just about a year ago, right after the variance was granted. It's to enable a 5th bedroom. It's the FAST system to enable a 5th bedroom and a swimming pool. We do plan to build both. However, the contractors are all backed up. So, it could be under construction next summer, but I'm not positive of that. Again, because they're so backed up, so I'm requesting a 2-year extension. The covenant that's required in the variance has been filed, so we're obligated to connect to the sewer when it comes. But we just like this extension. Appreciate the board's consideration.
Okay, thank you. It's pretty straightforward. Any questions or comments to Mr. Hall by board?
Are we now going to be offering all 2-year variances? I mean, Judy just said that, our policy has been a 1-year variance, and now we're taking a person who's had a 1-year variance and extending it for a total of 3 years. Is that something we want? Do we want to make a policy that everyone who comes for a variance now will get 2 years?
That's something the board can decide. It's certainly easy enough to do. I just, need to have you vote on that, or I would add it as part of my conditions that we extend the variances for 2 years. It might be reasonable, given what Mr. Hall said and what I'm hearing out in the field, that contractors are very backed up and engineers and contractors very busy. So I think 2 years may be something that we think about moving forward, and if you're willing to grant Mr. Hall this today.
Mr. Hall, this is John Beckley. How likely do you think you could manage this in 1-year extension?
I just think we could possibly get it going by next summer, late fall. It just might not be quite complete, but I also can't anticipate unexpected changes to the contractor schedules. They really are extremely backed up, particularly the pool people. I think the 5th bedroom would be easily done, but the swimming pool is very difficult.
Okay.
The pool is not really part of our variance, except that it needs to be set back 20 feet from the septic system. So as long as he has the permit pulled and the construction started, that would satisfy the variance.
Noble.
I think, yeah, I think in this case, extending it 2 years is reasonable with what's going on, but not make it as a policy. I think we would do it case by case, depending on the what's going on.
Because there is an unusual backlog now because of the disruption of COVID.
Right, and the town isn't really harmed until the 5th bedroom gets built in the IA, so we're not really, I don't think we're losing anything with the extension.
And the existing system's working fine.
Yes, as far as I know, yep.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It was cleaned out before I purchased the property.
More comments?
If the pool isn't part of the variance, then why does he need the 2 years?
Right.
He said the 5th bedroom would probably be done or under construction.
I guess it's what's the board's comfort level, extending a 2-year extension, or do you want to just do 1 year and see where that brings us?
Right, he can always come back in a year
Right.
if need be.
Yeah, Ron Roman, I feel comfortable with that 1 year also. You know, we'll more than willing to have them come back in a year, and we'll renew it, you know, but I think we start going to 2, then we're gonna go to 3, and we're gonna be people will be looking for 4. And I think we're setting the precedent. I think we should just stay with the 1.
Ed, what do you think? Same thing. So there seems to be support on the board for this extension to be 1 year, with the hope that the applicant will complete the work that's on the table. And if he needs to come back, Mr. Hall, if you can't do that in 1 year, then come back and we'll, in all likelihood, give you a 2nd year. But we would hope that you make a good faith effort and get this done within the next year. That's what my read of the board. Do we want to have a motion on this? I guess we're going to have to.
I'll make a motion to extend it for 1 year.
Okay, we have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table that's been seconded. Anybody else want to comment before the Board of Health votes? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, good. So there is a consensus here. Mr. Hall, you're approved for 1 year. And if you can't make that work, come back.
Thank you. I appreciate the board's consideration.
You're very welcome. Okay, let's go to item number 2 on the agenda, which is a variance hearing for Howard and Inga Walker at 8 Windmill Lane. Judy, do you want to introduce this?
Hi, we have John O'Reilly here, but I can start by saying that John, on behalf of his client, is requesting that they be allowed to install a pool, an in-ground pool, a soaking pool, which I guess is just a small pool, 3 feet from the leaching area where 20 feet is required. This would be a variance of 17 feet. I think from my memo, you can see that I'm not totally comfortable with this. I did speak to somebody at DEP who thought that that was too close as well. So, I mean, maybe we can get John's thoughts on this.
John?
Yes, good afternoon. For the record, John O'Reilly. Also with on the call is Mr. Walker, Chip Walker. We are asking for a variance to install a package pool set, if you will. It's called a soak tub. It is not constructed like a typical pool where you dig down 4, 5, 6 feet below the surface, construct the pool sidewall, and then backfill. This is a soak pool which comes self-contained. And what we are asking for is simply to place this pool 3 feet off the sidewall of the leach field. The type of leach field we're dealing with here is a perk-right field. We actually did the design for when the system was put in many years ago, and the system has been performing very well. It does include an enhanced treatment component to it. So we would be looking to simply dig down approximately 18 inches below grade, construct a gravel bed or a base for the pool, and then simply set the pool on top of the bed, and then have the area, the small excavation backfilled. I do not anticipate this to impact the system at all. I'm very familiar with the perk-right systems, and they constitute, their capacity is constituted by the length of tubing and the bottom area of the field, and no sidewall is accounted for. And I'll also note that the sidewall of the pool closest to the field is only 7 feet, so we're not talking a large or a long gated pool area. There is no place, we can't maintain the 20 feet given the location of the existing home. And Mr. and Mrs. Walker are looking to construct an elevated deck which would encompass this pool as it's shown on the plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but again, I don't foresee this impacting the capacity of the leach field nor the operational component of the perk ring. But I'll be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Go ahead, Dick.
I have two questions. One is, this pool, the sidewall of the pool, is it significantly above ground level?
Yes.
So it's like an above-ground pool, or a partially above-ground pool?
It's majority of it is above the grade. The bottom of the pool intersects the elevation of the field. So we're required to hold that 20-foot or seek a 20-foot or 17-foot, in this case, waiver from the 20-foot.
I'm sorry, would you say that again? What is?
Sure. The bottom of the pool is below the invert of the leach field, of the perk-right leach field. And because the invert elevation is above the bottom of the pool, we're required to hold 20 feet from that pool structure, even though there's 3 feet or more above grade. In fact, I think it's even more. Chip can correct me if I've misspoke. But the deck elevation is elevation 11. The top of the pool is around elevation 12. So you can see with an existing grade of 8, the pool is about 4 feet, 4.5 feet above grade.
So the pool is delivered pre-manufactured?
That's correct.
So the bottom of the pool is contiguous with the sidewalls of the pool. There's no seams there or anything. I mean, well, there is.
The way I look at it, sir, is it's really a glorified septic tank without a cover. It's a concrete vault that has the plumbing already plumbed through the concrete wall, and that's simply set on a gravel base, leveled, backfilled, wired, and plumbed.
And on these pools, when you need to drain the pool, how do you drain it?
Conservation, we have gone through conservation. We're pending their final review of the project, but it will be pumped out and not discharged to the ground.
So maybe Mr. Duncanson, Dr. Duncanson, could explain why the regulations require a 20-foot setback for a pool.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. The 20-foot setback was really designed for in-ground pools. So pools that are built and, you excavate out, form it up, and you don't want it too close to the septic system, because if there were any, as you mentioned, if there were any gaps or imperfections in that concrete pour, you could potentially get something, leaching in from the ground. Judy and I had spoken about this case last week. Originally, I too was concerned about it, but hearing John's description that it's basically above ground, so predominantly above grade, and it is a one-piece prefabricated unit, I'm less concerned about it being that close to the, the Perkrite system. John, we have as part of the package, we have a plan, soap pools, I guess, which shows the plan, and on the lower right and lower left, I guess, is kind of the side or the end view.
That's correct, Bob.
Could you just, using that plan, could you just indicate where ground level would be on either side of it? So I think you said you dug down just a little bit and basically you set this on a gravel base, so most of it is above grade. And then I assume the deck is higher, and so the deck is built around it, which makes sense. But can you just, approximately, I mean, I see the 6-inch thick base of this pool. Is that at or just below grade, maybe?
Yeah, the bottom of the chamber, the bottom of the 6-inch slab is
Yep.
about 9-10 inches below existing grade.
Okay.
So it's
And then you
almost above
have,
ground.
I'm sorry, Bob, then you have a gravel bed that extends down an additional 9 inches.
Okay.
And that's where the 18 inches come from.
Okay. All right, so roughly 4 feet or so of this is actually going to be sitting above grade. Now, your Perkrite system, how far is that below grade, do you know offhand?
9 inches below grade.
So that's 9 inches below grade, so that will be just about at the bottom of the concrete then, with your stone base below that.
Yes.
Okay.
So I have one other question. That is, this is in the Little River neighborhood?
Yeah.
And I went over and I looked at this, and it appears to be sort of behind the sand dune and in an area at some risk of flooding. Does that have any effect on our considerations here? You know, I mean, we know they're down there with the fire trucks pumping out that area relatively frequently.
Yeah, the area is completely within the 100-year floodplain, as noted on the plan. The pool will be inundated at times of flood. You know, if there's a 100-year flood, it will be inundated. The pool is not going to be chemically treated. It's going to be a saline pool. That was a concern the commission had of potential pollutants getting out into flood water. And we've addressed the buoyancy, again, with the Conservation Commission from a storm debris perspective. And the pool is slated to remain full and will not float during a 100-year floodplain. So we have addressed those, the pollution side of it as well as the storm debris side of it with the commission.
The septic system then will be submerged as well?
Yeah, if there's a 100-year flood, which we know happens more than every 100 years these days,
Right,
yeah, the leaching system,
will be submerged and
Would be
will
submerged.
malfunction for that period of time.
correct, it'll be inundated with water.
Right.
Which eventually will go down. I believe the tanks out there are single pour with protection.
There's no way around that because
No.
we have a bunch of systems there that are in the ground right now.
Right.
Right? That were built years ago.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, this is Chip Walker, the owner of the property. Yes, so during the floods of 18, we were inundated. We did, the septic system performed just fine. We were not there at the time, but we just had a little bit of maintenance done. I think some of the sensors got tangled up and the tanks ended up draining down just fine. So I think I had to replace a fan of some sort that John would know better than I would. But so there was a few little maintenance issues related to the damage back in the 18 flood periods. But overall, it held up just fine.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you a question that, how easy would it be to relocate the pool to be closer or further from the septic, moving it to the other side of the deck, for instance?
Well, I'll take a stab at answering that, but Chip Walker is on the call, you just heard from, and could better explain it if I missed the point. Part of the package we provided you is a layout of the pool and the new deck, as well as the reconstruction of the sunroom that's adjacent to that end of the house. You can see to slide the soak pool further or closer to the house, it inhibits the stair design as it comes up to get to an upper deck above the sunroom. And they were trying to provide some usable space, a table and some lounge area adjacent to the sunroom, which if the soak pool was moved further away, would impact that as well. So we decided to, the designer came up with this layout, which meets the expectations of the walkers. But Chip, I don't know if you have something to add to that.
Thank you, John. I think that was a pretty good recap. I think given that the requirement is for a 20-foot setback, currently as proposed, we're looking for a 17-foot variance, so a 3-foot setback. I think looking at the plans, the closest it could get would be a further 5 feet away from the leach field, so 8 instead of 3. So we'd still be seeking a variance. I think, as John said, it seems a little. Our first choice in design was not to have that soak pool kind of right up against the porch, so you'd be standing in the porch and you'd be looking down into that. We sort of like the aesthetic further, having it on that corner of the deck with the stonework and so forth gives, as I think the one elevation showed the stonework that we plan on the side. So that was, and it kind of ties in well with those stairs from the lawn. So that was sort of our thinking.
I have a question for Judy. Judy, when you consulted with the DEP on this, did you discuss with them the detail of the type of pool that was being proposed and its shallow depth from grade? Or was this
No,
a
it
discussion of a general
was a
pool setback?
Yeah, it was a general pool setback. I didn't get into all the details, and I'm not sure I totally understood the details as John explained them today, that the pool would be so far above grade, so.
So what do board members think? This is kind of a twist here. It is a pool technically, but it's not a standard pool in the sense that it's a deep excavation and it goes right alongside.
And just so you know, there is no setback for an above-ground pool,
There is none.
no.
Yeah, this is Noble. I'd be interested in what Dr. Duncanson thinks about this particular soak pool in terms of, an in-ground pool variance. Is this something that he views as completely different? I mean, I do think it's almost like an above-ground pool, but I'd be interested in what Dr. Duncanson thinks there.
Yeah, thanks, Noel. Having heard John's description in more detail than was, available on the plans. I would agree with Judy. I mean, I'm less inclined to now consider this an in-ground pool, and more so towards an above-ground pool, because I think, even though the excavation is down roughly 18 inches, if the perchlorate tubing is down 9, and we all recognize groundwater in this area is extremely high, and that's one of the reasons why they have the perchlorate system. Even if that material were to come towards the pool, I suspect it would more likely be in the, that gravel layer underneath it, as kind of drain, if you will. And because it's a prefabricated one seamless unit, I think the chance of getting anything into the pool is extremely remote. Now, that having been said, when Judy and I reviewed this the other day, we were both uncomfortable with the 3 feet distance. One of the options we looked at was turning the pool. So instead of it being tucked in that corner with the long end, the 10-foot and basically along the deck, it's to turn it the other way and maybe move it, 2 or 3 feet in the deck. I think you could probably still do that and preserve where the stairway is, but it might, it might give us 5 to 7 feet away from the edge of the perchlorate as opposed to the current 3. And I realize, we're talking very small amounts, and I think we're all a lot more comfortable now with the design that's been explained and what we maybe originally thought. So I'm not sure. I see John's probably looking at the plan and got his scale out and everything else at the moment. Anyway, just that was a thought that we had, as opposed to maybe moving it, onto another side of the deck or something, to just kind of maximize the distance away that you could get.
Well, what do board members think?
I probably missed something, but why couldn't it go back to where the existing table is and move the table?
You're not on.
Okay. Why they couldn't move it back to where the existing table is and move the table somewhere else? I know he said something, but I missed what it was when he was explaining.
Hello, sir. Ronald, Chip Walker. I think one reason we didn't want it there where the existing table is shown on the drawings is then you'd have, when you look at it from the front of the house, you would see, instead of the deck, you would see the stone face of the pool. We thought aesthetically it's a very different look. So in the way it's designed now, the stonework on the face of the pool is towards the back of the house. So I think aesthetically it's a very different look.
Okay, thank you.
Noble?
Well, I mean, I'd be inclined to approve it, thinking of it more as an above-ground pool with some effort to move it reasonably a little farther away from the leaching pit if possible. Maybe the engineer can talk to that.
The counter argument to that is if we're going to essentially consider it as an above-ground pool largely, there's no 20-foot setback requirement whatsoever.
Yeah.
So if that were the case, we could approve it as proposed.
Yeah, I think
And
that's,
leave the applicant's preferences in place as to design, location, and appearance. We're talking about 9 inches below the start of the septic system, so it's very close to simply being an above-ground pool,
yeah, I agree with that.
more so than not. Dick?
No, I agree with you, but when I look at this, I'm just wondering if you take this 10 by 6 pool and moved it to the right, sort of up to the edge of the deck where the steps come up, then you could have a little bit of deck on the other side of the pool, and you'd be able to enter the pool from 3 sides instead of 2. If that were my pool, I think I'd rather do it that way, and then you'd have 3 more feet away from the side. You see on the diagram, if you just move the pool to the right, abutted it up against the deck, you could step into the pool from there. You could step into the pool from the long side, and then you could even have a little deck on the other short side, which would, I would think, be the way I'd build it. But I almost think of this as like a very large hot tub now, or, a jacuzzi, and I would think it would be fine.
In a sense, sir, that is kind of what the design is. It's hot and cold. I think what you see there on the drawing, that rectangle off to the side that, is to the right of the pool, but to the left of the stairs.
Yeah.
That's where an automated cover system is. It's like a rolling cover that is automatic and secure and locking. And so there's a functional aspect of that part of the drawing there that I think it's on a different elevation that may be showing it in more detail, but that's the reason that it's kind of like that now.
Could you put that on the other end of the pool? Then you could step into the pool from the deck by the stairs.
Well,
Flip the pool 180 degrees.
Yeah, I see what you say. So then those stairs that you see in the drawing are to go from the lawn up to the deck.
Yeah.
And then on the drawing, there are some rectangles right below where it says 10 by 6 soak pool. That's to step up from the deck into the pool.
Okay.
So you can't really step from the stairs of the deck into the pool. And I'm just trying to think. How much space does that look like, John, there? Is that cover, is that about a foot difference, you think?
The cover, I believe, is about 2 feet.
2 feet, okay. So
Yeah.
it looks like it.
The overall pool from sidewall to sidewall is 13 feet by 7 feet. The actual pool itself is 10 by 6, which leaves you about a 2-foot area for that automatic pool opening and some inner workings of the pool.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Yeah, you said the stairs that are immediately adjacent to the pool that go off, looking at the plan, kind of, up to the top of the sheet. Those you said go right out to the lawn area, correct?
Yes, sir.
Where the other stairs that are in more of an L shape, where do they go?
Those go to a deck to be built above the sunroom, or adding an upper deck on top of the existing sunroom that's to be rebuilt.
Okay, so those stairs are going up as opposed to down to the lawn area. Okay, all right. I was just trying to figure out, there were a lot of stairs there, and it's like, do you really need them all? But I see now why you've got them, okay.
Yeah. And I think just in the spirit of this proposal, what we were planning was basically to have an above-ground pool. That was the spirit of it. And then when you get to the design phase, you find that you need to match all these certain elevations. And so we end up being, kind of less than a foot below grade in terms of the actual pool, but it's basically just to put that 18 inches of gravel down as a base, and then you still have to step up from the deck into the pool. So the spirit of our proposal was to have it as above ground as possible, in line with kind of the designs of all the other elevations.
Would it be possible to, because you've already got one step up to get into the pool, John, would it be possible to set the bottom of the pool right at grade, have your 18 inches of stone, and then basically you'd have 2 steps around the pool to step into it? So instead of having the bottom of the pool down 9 inches or so into your excavation, have the bottom of the pool right at grade, put your 18 inches of stone underneath that, and so the pool would be sticking up a little bit higher out of the deck, so you might need a second step to get into it. Would that be possible? Because then I think the board is really in the realm of an above-ground pool.
I'll answer it, and then Chip can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think by elevating it to 9 inches versus rotating it or moving the pool, is probably a better option for how the walkers wanted to utilize that deck in that area. And it would require another step into the pool, maybe two, depending on how it all worked out in the field. But if we were to pick it up to 9 inches, you're right in between a 1 and a 2-step rise. So if the board was not happy with the 9 inches below grade and wanted it elevated to be at grade, or versus moving the pool, I think elevating it to 9 inches may prove to be a better solution. But I know
Yeah,
Mr. Walker has done
John,
tremendous amount.
Yeah, John, I would concur with you on that. I think, again, we kind of relied on our experts for, all these elevations are very confusing to a homeowner, but John knows what he's talking about. And we said, can we just set it at the ground level? And then it gets into all the different elevations and the base and so forth. So if the board wanted it further elevated at that 9 inches or so to make sure the base, could we just be clear, is it the 6 inch, is it the bottom of the pool or the bottom of the form, I guess is what I'd like to make sure I understand.
So if you, through the chair, if you look at my cover letter, the elevation of the leach field is elevation 7.7, and we were calling for the pool to be at that elevate, bottom of the pool to be at that elevation. So if we were to elevate that 7/10, which is about 9 inches, I think, we would be looking at, the bottom of the pool being equal with the perk right.
John, when you say the bottom of the pool, again, to what Mr. Walker was saying, are you saying the bottom of the form or the
Bottom.
bottom of the inside? The bottom of the form.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's what I was thinking. All right.
Well, what do board members think? Do you want to require the installation to be at grade, or are you okay at being 9 inches down, which is not 100% above grade, but it's predominantly above grade? So it really is more like an above-ground pool in that case. What are the sentiments? I'm okay either way, personally.
As Noble, I think if the owner is agreeable and they can move the pool up 9 inches and then it is an above-ground pool, that would be ideal, an ideal solution to the whole thing, if that's within the realm of what they would consider.
Is there support for that on the board? I'm seeing nods.
I agree with Noble.
Okay, can I get a motion? Or Noble, can you put that into a form of a motion?
Yeah, I move that we approve the variance with the pool elevation being,
They don't actually need a variance if
yeah,
they raise the pool,
that's right.
correct?
Yeah, okay, then.
So how do we
then
word
We
it?
need to hear back from the owner, I guess, whether that is something he would consider.
Right, so you would make the motion that you have them redesign the pool so that it is completely at the same elevation as the leaching, and there would be no variance required.
So
Okay,
we
then I'll-
would request a statement, a letter from the applicant clarifying this, and then he would withdraw the variance request.
Correct, yep.
Okay, so there'd be no motion, it would be a, what's the proper phrasing for that then, Judy?
Well, I mean, you can do one of two things. John could draw the variance now and agree to redesign, or we can deny the variance. So it's up to how I think John and Chip want to continue.
I would not want you to deny the variance. I think what we will do is, if we are in agreement that the bottom of the slab be at elevation 7.7, and that would not constitute a variance, then we would look to withdraw the application accordingly.
Is that ground level?
Yes.
That's,
So I think I'm following this. So John, the bottom of the form is at 7.7. Then underneath that is there's still like the 18 inches of gravel as the
Yeah,
base?
you still have the gravel, so if the board is not gonna consider that part of the pool, then what they're saying to
Right.
you is you don't need a variance.
Right.
right.
I think that's the case. So we okay then? I'm hearing a consensus from the board members.
Yeah, this is Noble, I think we're okay if, I guess if the owner agrees that he would be elevating the pool 9 inches or whatever it is, so that that we consider it an above-ground pool, and then there is no variance needed. And then they would be
So how does this-
withdrawing the request.
How
for
is this
variance.
codified? Is it codified with a short note from the applicant agreeing to this and withdrawing the variance just for?
I think they can just withdraw it verbally right now, and we can accept the withdrawal, and then,
Our records will show.
and
it.
then we'll get a redesign.
You'll get a
Building permit.
revised plan.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's the way this becomes codified, okay.
I think I'm leaning towards that this works for us as the owners. I'm just curious to take the sentiment of the board. If there was the 9-inch variance and it was as proposed, is the sentiment that that's something that you would reject? I'm just trying to gauge. I think, as John said, that he didn't think there's a tremendous, or there's not an impact to the leach field. And it is 3 feet and it's contained. So I was just curious what the sentiment is if it was considered as proposed.
Yeah,
The preferences, I guess.
yeah, I'd be more intended to not to approve it, because once we do one, we're going to have other people coming in, whereas you can raise it up and it's above the ground pool. And
So
that's-
you would say that you would not personally approve the existing design, you
Yeah.
like the 9-inch?
I'm always worried about we do something and then
Yes.
where other people are going to come in and say, well, you did it for this one.
Okay.
You know, and that's happened to us quite a few times.
Other board members? I'm getting a nod from Carol.
This is Noble, I agree with what Ron said.
Okay, so there is a consensus on the board not to feel comfortable approving the design as is, approving the variance as is. So, yes, so we would, the board collectively would rather the bottom of the pool be at grade.
Great, thank you for the feedback on that. I appreciate, and I think I understand the matter of precedence, and I can imagine why that would not be precedent. Okay, well, I think, John, how did we proceed? I think you just said we withdraw
I
this.
think, I think what we'd like to do is withdraw the application without prejudice. And if we can just confirm before we do that, that the bottom of the slab of the pool will be at elevation 7.7, which is the elevation of the perk-right field, thus being an above-ground pool.
Yes.
that's correct.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Bob?
Yeah, John, I'm just making, just like you, I want to make sure we're all on the same page. So when we say elevation 7.7, that's the elevation of the perk-right tubing, but that's 9 inches, still that's 9 inches below grade.
That's why I've asked for that clarification, Bob.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
that's
at grade.
not
If
at grade.
you're going to require us to do at grade, then we're actually bumping it up much, much higher than that.
Right.
Okay.
So that's more complicated.
That's more complicated then, because
Yeah.
I was sensing the board was drawing comfort from the elevation being essentially equal to an above-ground pool. And so I'm not quite sure what to do now.
I think that the, Title V, what they're looking for is for the pool to be above the elevation of a leaching area, assuming that that's going to be above, considered, above grade. I don't know, I didn't word that correctly, but you know what I'm saying? If the bottom of the pool is above the elevation of the leaching area, it's usually going to be an above-ground pool. Most leaching areas are within, they're required to be within 3 feet of grade, so you don't usually have a pool that's that shallow. So I think we could accept this if they maintain that bottom of the leaching area at the elevation of the pool, bottom of the pool. Bottom of the pool being at the elevation of the bottom of the leaching area. It's up to the board, but I would be okay with that.
Bob?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would agree with Judy. If the bottom of the pool slab is at or above the elevation of the perk tubing, so 7.7, I would be okay with that as well. I think then we've met the spirit and intent of Title V, that, there's no way that anything leaching out of that tubing could get into the pool because it's going to go down, that material is going to go down as opposed to up into the pool, if you will.
Correct.
So I would be okay with that.
All
I
right.
just want to make sure we were all on the same page. And John, I think it would be helpful if you do give us a revised plan, if there's a cross-section.
Sure.
Which kind of shows, the grade, the top of the ground, the grade of the perk tubing, the grade, the elevation of the bottom of the bottom slab of the tank, if you will, on the outside, and then your 18 inches of stone below that. I think having that cross-section would really clear it up.
That's easy to do, and we'll be happy to do that.
Okay,
Thank you for the clarification, everybody. That's very helpful.
all right.
This is Noble, so then Judy would make some kind of a note that this is what we agreed to with the level and all, as you explained
Yes,
it.
yep, yes,
And the application is repealed, withdrawn, without prejudice.
Not to be a picky wicket, but being on a board myself, I think you need to vote to allow the project to be withdrawn without prejudice.
okay.
Okay. Is that reasonable?
That sounds good, yeah,
Yes.
to accept the withdrawal.
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the retreat of the program, or I'm thinking what the wording was.
The withdrawal of the request for variance.
Of the variance, yeah.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second, Noble?
Second, Noble. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay,
Thank you very much for your time.
you're very welcome.
Everyone.
Sorry,
Appreciate your input.
sorry it took so long.
We got through it. Thank you.
All right, take care. All right. That was. All right, let's go. We have another agenda item, item number 3, which is a variance request for real estate inspection regulation for Lucy Buckley at 202 Lime Hill Road, Phyllis Nickerson Power representing. Phyllis, are you on the call? Okay, this is 202 Lime Hill Road. Judy, you want to summarize where we are with this?
So I thought Phyllis was going to be here. But anyways, what's going on at 202 Lime Hill is the property is for sale. It's in an area of, where the sewer line was just completed, and it's ready for connections. I believe the buyers of the property are requesting permission to continue with the use of the system so that they complete the house renovations and the sewer connections. David Clark is under contract, and I believe the plan is just about done already. We do have an agreement attached to your memo that he has been contracted to do the work.
To do the
To
connection.
do the connection, yes.
Okay.
So they're and again, this gets down to the fact that it's, it's hard to get this work done. In our regulations, say within 30 days of transfer of property. Title V, we usually give for a new system 90 days. Neither of those would be probably possible. So they would like permission to transfer the property, and then continue with the process of
So why,
connections.
why has the septic system been deemed failed?
I didn't get an inspection report. My understanding is that an inspector went in and that the system, by his review of it, was close to imminent failure. Usually that means that the leaching system is looking like it's close to hydraulic failure, or it has failed and has been pumped.
Well, here's my reaction is, if there's an active septic failure, in other words, the effluent is not going down and it is pooling at the surface, then I would not be comfortable extending the use of that type of a system until they can, maybe 6 months. If that were the case, I'd say pump the effluent as frequently as necessary.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation, that the system be pumped as part of this transfer, and then be pumped as often as necessary to keep it
To
from.
prevent any surface discharge.
Correct, yep.
As frequently, it may be a gallon in, a gallon to pump, if it's not working. But that would be the burden of responsibility on the applicant to assure that the system was pumped as frequently as necessary to prevent any surface breakout or surface discharge of the effluent.
Yep.
Yeah?
Do we know if anyone's going to be living in there in this period of time? Or-
Well, I mean, they're looking for, the property would be connected to town sewer within 6 months, so I don't know whether it's contractors there in and out, or
It
whether.
does say here that they are planning a whole house renovation and do not intend to occupy the home until this is completed. And it's been vacant since May. So most likely the leaching has had a little bit of a time to rejuvenate itself, but there were probably some signs of it being,
On the edge.
on the edge.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Noble. Do we know how long it may be before the house could be hooked up to sewer, to town sewer? The connection could be made? Bob might know.
My understanding, and Bob can
It's
correct
ready.
me if I'm wrong, is that the sewer line is ready for connection there.
Yes, that's correct. We're just waiting for the final as-built drawings to come in from the engineer, and once those are in, we'll be coming back to the board and having you issue the orders to connect. So really, at this point, it's how quickly David can turn around the engineering plans, get those submitted, and the DPW can issue a permit, which, in a situation like this where the house is being renovated anyway, and as you heard earlier, the contractor may take longer than it will to get the sewer line installed. So, but everything is ready to go on that street.
Okay, so if the board's comfortable with this, can I get a motion to that effect? And I would say the system must be pumped as necessary to prevent surface discharge, not just pumped once and then that's it. But if they start using the system incrementally, and the system is so bad that it can't even discharge that, then they may have to pump every week. So I would say pump as necessary to prevent any surface discharge of effluent.
So the terminology would be surface discharge or effluent?
Yeah.
Okay. This is Noble, and I'll make a motion that we we grant the variance with the system being pumped at transfer and then pumped as necessary to prevent any surface effluent, and that it be connected to town sewer within 6 months.
All right, we have a second.
I'll second it.
Second from Ron. Anybody wish to comment on this before the board votes? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Which brings us to
Right.
the last agenda item, which is an update and a discussion on COVID-19 with Dr. Robert Duncanson. Dr. Bob?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I won't take up too much of your time today because we do have an item that I do want you to consider. Right now, we have 384 total confirmed cases in Chatham. We've had 23 cases so far in September of this year. Last year, in September of 2020, we had 8 cases total for the month. So we're almost 3 times as many cases so far in September of this year, and we're only up to the 20th of the month, so we still have 10 more days to go. We've had 7 cases over the last week since the board last met on the, last Monday on the 13th. And of those 7 cases we've had over the last week, 3 have been vaccinated, 3 have not been vaccinated, and 1 case, their vaccination status is unknown. So, as you can imagine, and you've heard me say this before, we are still seeing a significant uptick in the number of cases. We saw that in August of this year. We're now seeing it in September as well. And they're primarily due to the Delta variant, and primarily, we've seen about a 50-50 split since the beginning, the last couple of months, between vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals testing positive. So with that, that's kind of my quick update for today. And then I did, Judy did send around, and then I sent around last night an even more updated version. I think it is time for the board to consider reinstituting a face covering order. This one would be much more restricted in terms of its application, and it's primarily targeted towards meetings that take place in town offices. And I've provided this for a couple of reasons. One is obviously the increase in cases that we're experiencing. But the second thing is I've heard from a number of members of the town staff as well as some members of the public that they are concerned about the resumption of in-person meetings in town being held in some of our various meeting rooms that are relatively small and, potentially a significant number of people, and so that increases the risk of transmission. Now, obviously, simply wearing a mask is not an absolute guarantee that you won't get COVID, but it does make a significant difference, as we've been hearing for a year or more. So we drafted this order that you had as part of your packet, and I did send out an update to that last night. And basically, this order requires that anyone attending in person a town board, commission, or committee meeting, including town meeting if we were to have one indoors, and this only pertains to indoor meetings, as well as any gathering of 2 or more persons in a town building meeting room, including the community center gym and the fitness room. Must wear, anybody in those circumstances, whether they're vaccinated or unvaccinated and over 2 years of age, they must wear a mask. There are 2, basically, I'll call them exemptions, both of which are at the purview of either the meeting chair or the town moderator. that someone who has a medical condition, they can be excused because of that medical condition. And if somebody is speaking either at town meeting or at a podium, they can, with the chair's permission, remove their mask to speak. So with that, I will turn it back over to you for discussion, and this would take place immediately. This is not one where we would say, it takes effect in 3 days or a week or whatever. This would take effect immediately. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Bob? Board members? Dick?
Does the word gathering of 2 or more people, so that would include if there was an aerobics class in the aerobics room in the community center, they would have to be wearing masks during their aerobics class?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
we tried to word it in a way that, like in the lobby at Town Hall, if there were 2 or 3 people in the lobby one was at the town clerk's office and one was at the assessor's and somebody else was down at the treasurer collector, it wouldn't pertain in that circumstance. But if somebody was in one of the meeting rooms at Town Hall having a meeting with somebody else, they would have to be masked. It does not include, in town staff working in their own offices because those are not, quote, meeting rooms.
Okay, so I wanted to get that clear. So town employees working in their own space and interacting with other town employees are not required to wear masks under this order.
Yes, this is not a comprehensive mask mandate for all conditions. These are only in meetings.
Okay.
And just so the board is aware, I did share this with town council last week. He reviewed it, made a couple of editorial changes, and so he's aware of this document as well.
Yeah, this is Noble. I had a question. In the community center, the Women's Club has begun meeting, and then the Men's Club is going to begin meeting. Is there anything here about coffee, donuts, eating, in those meetings? And do I understand, am I correct in understanding that there's no number limit to those meetings in the great room up there?
Correct. There is no number limit. And, consistent with other guidelines and recommendations from CDC and others, if someone is actively eating or drinking and they are stationary, they could take their mask off in those circumstances.
Yeah, so it would be like the restaurant regulations. That's what I would.
It'd be like the restaurant regulations,
Right.
very similar, yes.
I have to note one thing. This revised came out from Bob at 10 o'clock on Sunday night, which I was impressed with.
Can I ask, are there currently like volleyball and basketball games going on in the gym with young people? And are they wearing masks or they're not wearing masks?
I know that there are some events going on in the gym. Pickleball is slated to start, I think, later in October. There have been some other events. They're kind of holding those consistent with the way the schools do for their gyms and whatnot. But we were made aware of a larger gathering in the gym about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, where there were a large number of people in there and they were not wearing masks. So that's why we felt it important to include the gym. We may have to revisit this as the weather gets colder and people spend more time indoors in the gym, and they're playing basketball and whatever. Right now, those things can continue to happen outside, so.
And is this going to include the gyms in the middle school and the elementary school?
Speak up.
No, this would only pertain to town buildings, not the school buildings. They have their own set of rules and regulations.
Other questions, comments? Seems
Dr.
reasonable.
Noble, I have a question. Bob Lear.
Go ahead.
Dr. Duncan, I had communicated with the town manager, who passed the concerns along to Dr. Duncanson, and I fully support his position. The Conservation Foundation wants to have a meeting in a few weeks in the community center, and I have concerns about the mask requirement, and he has addressed those. So I thank him and Jill for responding.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Well, if the board is comfortable with this, can we get a motion to approve the public health emergency order as provided to us? We have a motion to approve by Ed and a second.
I'll second it.
Second from Ron. Any further comments from anybody on this motion? Anybody from the community wish to comment? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All right, it carries unanimously. Very good. Do we have minutes that we were provided for September? Because I haven't seen them.
No.
So we're going to defer that action.
There are no minutes because the last meeting Diane wasn't here and I haven't had time to write them yet.
Okay.
So hopefully the next meeting we'll get a couple sets of minutes.
Okay, thank you. Any final issues or thoughts anybody would like to share before we adjourn?
I
Ron?
was just wondering, at one time, we were looking at how many people have not signed on when they were supposed to do the septic system. They've just bypassed us. At one time, we were going to set up a way of forcing them and everything, and I'm just wondering what the update is on that.
So we,
Are there still?
so we're talking about sewer connections?
Are there still a large number
We-
of people?
No, we sent out about 45 letters about a month ago to those that are left on our original order. And I've been getting a lot of feedback from people, contracts that people have signed on with engineers. One or two people may be coming into the board to ask for more time for various reasons. But we did send out, as I said, that next order letter. After that, and anybody who's left over, that's when we start the next process, which is sending the letter that says we're gonna file criminal, with the next step with town council.
So
The
we're not
two-
at that point yet, then?
We're not yet. We've been giving people a little bit more leeway. The second letter I just sent out, which was actually their third letter, was more of a reminder. Strongly worded, but the next one will be, this is the final order.
Okay, thank you.
But I think it's pretty good. We only had to send out about 45 letters.
Okay. All right,
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
Hi, it's Gloria Freeman. I was just wondering if you were going to have the Chatham water quality update.
Did I add that to the list?
It was not on the agenda.
Oh, that's my fault. I meant to add that to the agenda after last week's. I think it was on the online agenda, but I didn't add it to the paper agenda, so I apologize for that.
It is on the online agenda.
That was
Ooh,
my fault. That's what happens when I don't have Diane around helping me.
Well, are there any important updates that we should hear tonight?
The only update I have is that at the October 4th meeting, and I brought this up last time, we were going to have the county hazardous waste specialist come in or come online and talk to us about the inspections that she does at our
Okay.
our hazardous waste generators. I don't believe, unless Bob has something, and he's showing up, so he may have a little quick update.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The update that I have for you tonight is we have received 3 proposals from firms to conduct the PFAS assessment study. We are currently reviewing those, and hopefully shortly a recommendation will be made to the town manager. We will also be putting together a proposed article for the October special town meeting to fund that study, depending on which firm we choose and the amount of their proposal. And as you probably already know, well number 8 has been shut off when high PFAS levels were found in that well. Additional tests were taken, will be taken, I believe, tomorrow. And we'll get the next set of those results later this week or early next week. So other than that, there hasn't been any substantial change. They're still finalizing the upgrades to well number 4, which hopefully will be finished here shortly, and we'll be able to determine when that well might be brought online to make up now the deficit from wells 5 and 8 both being offline. So that's pretty much where we stand as of today.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, if we're done, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Ed, motion. We have a second? Second. Thank you, Carol. All in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.